Want to know why? Ask how. Howard, the humongous. Tonight's episode is about Obamascare. This is how Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, along with the Republican Party, are trying to destroy your health. This whole thing about Obamacare is something that can put you 6 feet under. Literally. Here's what's been going on. A few of the facts the Republicans don't want you to know. Once upon a time in 1960 when John Kennedy was elected president, we're going to consult some notes here to get these figures right. The United States spent 5.1% of its gross domestic product on health care. Our country had one of the best health care systems in the world. Today, we spend 17.9% of our gross domestic product. That's roughly 3.5 to 4 times as much on health care as we did back then. And our country's health care is rated roughly 27th in the world. 26 countries have better health care than we do, and they spend far less money. This is killing our economy. Who has been doing this? Has it been the tax and spend policies of the Democrats? No, it has been the Republicans. Consistently, the Republicans. Republican policy seems designed to funnel money to health insurance companies and other health-related corporations that do only a small amount to increase your health and do a great amount to deflate your pocketbook and the pocketbook of the nation. The result is that in the 1990s, a company called General Motors, that was then the biggest automobile company in the world, could not compete against the Japanese. It could not compete against Toyota and Honda. Why? Because for every automobile sold in the United States, $2,400 was spent on the health care of automobile workers. The Japanese took extremely good care of their auto workers too. In fact, the health of auto care workers in Japan was better. Their life expectancy was longer. But while General Motors was forced to spend $2,400 by Republican death care programs, the Japanese were only forced to spend $800 per automobile to get better quality health care. Now, isn't it an extreme rhetorical statement that has nothing to do with reality for me to call this Republican death care programs, for me to blame this bloat in our health care costs on Republicans? Well, let's look at a few facts. Let's consult the notes. These are shocking, and I don't get shocked all that easily. Wait a minute, let's go to Ronald Reagan. From 1981 to 1989, in the Reagan presidency, health care went up from 8.6% to 12.5% of the GDP. That's almost a 50% increase. Under Ronald Reagan, who said government is not the answer, government is the problem. And yet Ronnie was increasing the chunk that healthcare took out of a healthy American economy dramatically. Isn't it unfair to blame that on Republicans? Haven't healthcare costs been going up steadily ever since 1960, with or without Republicans? No, not at all. A president came in 1991 named Bill Clinton. He was a Democrat. From 1991 to 2000, under Bill Clinton, the Democrat, the tax and spend Democrat, what happened to healthcare costs as a percentage of our gross domestic product? It declined. It almost held even. But in the grand scheme of things, it went down just a tiny bit. But George Bush brought us sane economic policies. He returned us to the era of Reagan. He told us the government was the problem, not the solution. That private industry was the solution. That the market was the solution. In other words, he brought us the Republican, let's call it, health care program. And what does Republican health care policy consist of? Well, whatever it consists of, it's apparently very bad for our economy. Extremely bad for our economy. What do I mean? Under George Bush, the percentage of our GDP that we spent on health care went from 13.8% to 17.6%. It skyrocketed. Under George Bush, the percentage of Americans who filed for bankruptcy because of a health care disaster that bankrupted them went up from roughly 48% to roughly 68%. The normal human, a person like you and me, if hit with a major health care crisis, was being bankrupted by what passed for a health care system in the United States of America, despite getting care that was constantly going down in its quality compared to other nations that spent far less on their health care systems. This is why I call this the Republican death care plan. Meanwhile, in the race between the Republicans and the Democrats for the presidency that brought Barack Obama to office, we were told by the Republicans that the Democrats had death care panels up their sleeves. Well, that was a lie. That was absolutely false. We won't go into the roots of it because it was based on something so very, very different from what the Republicans were claiming that it constitutes a really insidious lie. But there are death panels in the United States. They've been operating for a very long time. They come to us courtesy of the Republican death care policy. They come to us from insurance companies. Insurance companies employ vast armies of bureaucrats to do only one thing: to figure out ways to legally deny you coverage, to take you off of health insurance, which you have paid for most of your adult life, and to shovel you as close to the grave as is humanly possible. Yes, death care panels in the private insurance industry. How did I find this out? I was sick in bed for 15 years and in contact with a lot of other people who were desperately ill. And those desperately ill people were fighting those bureaucrats for the very right to live. And where did those death panels come from? Which party encourages them? Which party keeps skyrocketing our health care costs as a percentage of GDP? Which party makes it impossible for Americans to manufacture a car that can compete with the Japanese because of skyrocketing health care costs? The Republican Party. How do we know? We have a Democratic president. Republicans love to hate him. They've been running a program ever since he ran for president of Obamascare. Relate everything you can to the name Obama and scare the shit out of people by lying, lying, lying to them. How do we know they're lying? Because in researching what's been happening to healthcare costs under Barack Obama and under his slow, sluggish, painful move toward his own healthcare program, the healthcare program that was passed by Congress and the Senate, Obamacare. Guess what's happened to the healthcare costs that were skyrocketing under George Bush, that were skyrocketing under Ronald Reagan, that leveled off under Bill Clinton? Health care costs have leveled off as a percentage of GDP again. They do that, apparently, under Democrats. They do not do that under the Republicans. You draw your own conclusions about why. And then there's another form of Republican death care, another Republican death plan. It's the death plan for the economy. Remember what happened after 7 years of George Bush Jr. and his plan to favor the private market and to decrease the size of government and to cut the size of taxes. Remember, taxes, cutting taxes, was supposed to grow the American economy. But we had one of the most sluggish rates of growth after a recession and depression in the history of the United States under George Bush. And then in 2008, we saw the real results of the Republican death care policy for the economy. We had the Great Recession of 2008. Some feel we are still in it today. We owe it to Republican economic policies. Now look, some government is bad for you. Some government mires you in bureaucracy. Some government can even kill you. But the fact is, when it comes to health care, the Democrats keep the rate of money, percentage of GDP spent on health care even. Republicans expand it dramatically, and if we went back to another 10 years of Republican health care cost expansion, health care would cost 28% of the American economy and would kill it even deader than the Great Republican Recession of 2008. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It is your job and my job to make. Now it's time for me to show my gross incompetence by searching for the off button. Ah! I